So you probably read where we want to enforce the laws as existing. And so we signed an order a couple of weeks ago, and it was taken over by a court, originally by a judge, and then yeah, it's very sad. And you know, the reason is for protection and safety. So the statute is so plain and so clear. I said last week I was speaking to a great group of sheriffs, the sheriff's group in Washington. And I said, if you have a college education, you can understand it. If you have a high school education, you can understand it. If you were a bad student in high school, you can understand it. And I was told, I'll check, but I found it hard to believe, in an over 30-page decision by the appellate court, 3 judges. And you could tell by the way they were reacting because it was broadcast on television, and everything we do gets a lot of people watching. So you could tell by the way that phone call went, was it looking good? And when they wrote their decision, as I understand it, maybe I'm wrong, but they didn't write the statute that we're making the decision about. Because every word of the statute is a total kill for the other side. So I thought I'd read it. And here's what it says. This is what it says. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States. Okay, so essentially, whenever somebody comes into the United States, right? If it would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, okay? Now, you know the countries we're talking about. And these were countries picked by Obama. They weren't even picked. They were picked by Obama. He may, so the president may, by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary. Now, because it's old, it should have said he or she, right? They were not politically correct when they drew this. In fact, that's the only thing that was actually wrong with it. He or she. But I don't think the women care too much about that, right? I don't think so. By the way, we did very well with women. You know, my wife said when some of these phony polls were put out, you know, the CNN poll was so far off, the phony polls. But when some of these polls, she said, what's wrong with you and women? We did very nicely with women. We did nicely with a lot of groups that they didn't think we were going to do so nicely with. I guess we had to. That's why we're all here tonight, right? So, and it goes, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restriction he may deem to be appropriate. So basically it says the president has the right to keep people out if he feels it's not in the best interest of our country, right? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I listen to these judges talk and talk and talk. So unfair. So we'll be doing something over the next couple of days. We don't give up. We never give up. We had a court that I disagree with. I disagree with Big League. And by the way, whether you read it or whether you watch it on television, when other lawyers come on, many of them can't even understand. They're saying, how do you come up with that decision? It cannot be more simple. So they're ruling on what I just read you, and they don't even quote it in their ruling. Because you can't, because it's too obvious. So we will do something next week. I think you'll be impressed. Let's see what happens. Here's the bottom line. We've got to keep our country safe. You look at what's happening. We've got to keep our country safe. You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible. You look at what's happening in Brussels. You look at what's happening all over the world. Take a look at Nice. Take a look at Paris. We've allowed thousands and thousands of people into our country, and there was no way to vet those people. There was no documentation. There was no nothing. So we're going to keep our country safe. And we all have heart, by the way. And what I want to do is build safe zones in Syria and other places so they can stay there and live safely until their cities and their country, that mess that I was left by Obama and everybody else. Folks, we were left a mess like you wouldn't believe. But we're going to build safe zones. We're going to have those safe zones. You know, we do owe $20 trillion, okay? So we're going to have the Gulf states pay for those safe zones. They have nothing but money. And we're going to do it that way instead of taking massive numbers, tens of thousands of people into our country, and we don't know anything about those people. We want people to come into our country, but we want people that love us. We want people that can cherish us and the traditions of our country. We want people that are going to be great for our country. We don't want people with bad ideas. We don't want that. I've also directed the defense community, headed by General, and now well, you know, he said it. He said it. And now Secretary Mad Dog Mattis, to develop a plan to totally destroy ISIS. I have ordered the Department of Defense to begin plans for the great rebuilding of the United States military. We will pursue peace through strength. Our military